Welcome back. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about my PTSD. The reason I'm calling that, as I've described in another video, is I'm not a huge fan of that acronym, simply because it's extremely vague, a vague diagnosis. And again, too, so PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. The idea being is something stressful, something traumatic happens, and after it happens, the mental reaction to it happening sticks with you. And a lot of times it sticks to you for life. At least at this point, that's what I'm going to state with my own pain, just because it's been a little more than 15 years since my twin was killed, and it still hurts immensely. It's still, I still have post reactions to it, as far as just certain triggers that will intensify my pain, intensify my depression from my pain. And so, I figure 15 years in, that's a pretty good snapshot of, I imagine that it's going to have effects on my life for many years, and I imagine that it's possible that as I get older, that it will diminish dramatically. I think that it's difficult talking about my mentality, being a twin, or more specifically a twinless twin, because I think that in many cases, like for example, a lot of people fear death, and rightfully so. But specifically after my twin was killed, I haven't feared death. I would say in the last decade, I fear death more, because I would say I've been married for a good while, and my wife and I, we have 4 beautiful kids, and so as I've had dependence around me, as I've had a need for my existence, that's not to be too bleak. But honestly, my children and my wife saved my life, because if I didn't have them, I can tell you years ago, and I'm in a much better place now, but years ago I would have certainly ended my life, because the immense amount of overwhelming pain that I felt has made me feel like life, like I wouldn't be happy. But the reason that I kept going was the fact that, knowing the pain that I do know from traumatic loss, I just knew the pain I would be inflicting on my loved ones, and that's something that I didn't want to put them through. That even if I have to, slug on for another 60 years or whatever, I'll walk through those ashes and walk through those hot coals, so that they don't have to. And so again, that's really something that's kept me going. It's given me strength when I felt like I had none. But again, just kind of getting into the twinless twin aspect of it and my PTSD. For myself, being a twinless twin, yes, there have been times where I had suicidal thoughts. Fortunately enough, it never escalated to the point of sitting in a room with a gun or a bottle of pills or anything like that. But certainly there were times where my heart just felt depleted, where emotionally and mentally, I felt like I was in the Sahara Desert, with no water in sight, and it had been weeks. I felt on the brink, so many times. But that really, self-reflecting on what my emotions were, a lot of my emotions of not wanting to live wasn't as suicidal as much as just not understanding life, not seeing a purpose in my life, because being a twin, at least from my own experience, is something where you want to experience everything your twin experiences. That's actually one of the main reasons I joined the Marine Corps, was I saw the value it brought my twin's life, and how passionate he was about it, and him talking about his Marine Corps boot camp and School of Infantry and all this stuff, and it just got me excited to be adventurous too. And that's one of the impacts my twin had on me, was that he was very courageous in that aspect, where he would run towards the battle, whereas I'm excessively analytical, and so I would sit back, analyze the battle, and figure out how to win. But again, so that was just something where that bond that we shared just really drew us towards each other's interests. It was one of those things where, I remember growing up, and my twin was giving me a hard time about playing computer games or something, and then one day he saw a game I was playing and got some interest, and so I showed him how to do it, and he ended up playing it for, I think, like 3 or 4 hours straight, and he saw that, like, why I had interest in it. But it was just really cool, because we were these two individuals that like I said, we were being a twin. It's very much like two versions of yourself. If you had made different choices, if you had embraced certain strengths within your soul, And so it really was just so awesome of a connection. And so when he passed, that was just kind of the thing. Was it was just like I wanted to experience the next life with him. It wasn't as much as like I said, I didn't spend most time being suicidal as much as just ready to pass on, ready to see what's on the other side. And so, like I'm saying with the concept of eventually, I think that my PTSD will diminish, because I think that, if let's say I do live for another 50 years or whatever, a long time without my twin, I think, after I start seeing my kids grow up and I see them having kids and such, and them having their own lives, that I feel like I'll be ready once I can see that they are established adults or whatever. I think that my soul will be ready to move on and to be free. And so I don't, typically, if once I get into my 60s or so, I don't think I'm gonna be afraid of death, because it's something I think I've been longing for many years, just to be reunited with my twin. But again, it's just important. The reason I'm talking about my PTSD is I feel like it's a very misunderstood disease of the mind, because, like I said, it's so many people I've heard in passing, and I've seen in comments and so forth, talking about it whimsically. And I would say whimsically, that's kind of that's an inaccurate description of it, but they talk about it so freely, and as I'm speaking about it now, I feel some anxiety, because I don't want people thinking I'm saying this for attention. It's something that I don't talk about my pain for attention. I talk about it because I want people to be able to relate to me, or maybe even know somebody who's going through something that I've gone through before, or am currently going through. And so that's kind of what it is I'm trying to be a mediator, trying to be like a psychological mental translator for people. It's almost, if you like a language translator. If you don't speak Spanish, then you might have and then you're talking to somebody who speaks Spanish, you'd have a translator who's explaining what they're trying to say. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say for mental health and for people suffering from depression, is I just kind of want to give a window into what's going on in their minds, because it's a very terrifying disease. And as I've discussed, I think one of the most terrifying parts about it is it's invisible. You can't see someone's mental health. You can't see the crippling effects it has. And so you don't understand maybe the irrational or the extreme behavior made by people suffering from mental illness and depression. And so, I just want to explain that so with my PTSD, the reason, again, I don't like to say that is because a lot of people associate it with combat, with seeing combat, and I've never seen combat, and so I don't want people to misconstrue, especially in the fact when I have, so I don't know if it's been caught on camera, but I have military tattoos and so forth as a memorial for my twin, so I just don't want people to be misunderstood. I really would like if we could broaden the acronym of PTSD to specific forms of that, because, like I said, you can have PTSD from a car accident, you can have PTSD from combat, you can have it from so many different forms. Like I said, it's something that just continues throughout your life. When my dad did what he did to my sister, that had its own form of that, where it just it infects your mind to where if something happens or doesn't happen, you will react in a way that you wouldn't have normally reacted. It was just one of those things where, like, if someone starts talking about like a pedophile or a sex offender, I cringe, because internally that no longer means an external source. That means someone that was close to me. And so that's the impact, and that's the thing that can be very scary about having that type of mental impact on your life, of having something so traumatic that it leaves a continuous echo in your life that will constantly, like I said, when I watch combat movies, when I watch anything where when I watch any type of serious movie where somebody is passing away or is killed dramatically, it does a lot of times trigger my pain with my twin. Like I say, loved ones in my life, when they lose loved ones, it does trigger my pain, because I think I made an episode called I See Depressed People, and I talk about that sense, because that was one of the things that was, I think that a combination of who I was and what happened to me and who I am now. I made it to where a lot of times when I'm seeing people talk about their pain, or even just basically describing it, they don't have to be emotional or anything. But when I see them getting emotional, or I see them describing what happened to them, a lot of times it tears at my soul, it tears at my heart, because I feel like I can feel their pain, and I don't know their pain. Like I said, that's an important distinction, because you can understand someone's pain, you can have knowledge of it, but the only person that knows your pain is you, and it's a very lonely feeling. But yeah, and so with like the PTSD triggers, that's one of the things that a lot of people, like I said in another episode, was that a lot of times people who know about your pain will be on the alert about certain things that are extremely sensitive to it. They'll look at very blatant things, like Memorial Day. I'll get a lot of love from people close to me. On the day my brother was killed, same thing on our birthday. And so there's certain days that people kind of, the alarm goes off for thinking of you, which is great. I'm not knocking on that. But I just really want to give a window in the fact that a lot of times, our pain, when you're suffering from depression and extreme traumatic pain, it's a lot more subtle than that. A lot of times it could be something as simple as like a chain of events. So let's say you go to work and you have an incident with a coworker or a customer or whatever, and they're just overly hateful towards you, and it's something, they're having a bad day and they take it out on you. And then so you, on your way to lunch or whatever, someone cuts you off or something, and so the problem is it can literally be like 2 or 3 or maybe 4 small insensitive, truly insensitive, but that smaller things. You get home and your loved one ate the dessert or whatever that you were saving from the night before when you went out on the date night or something like that. Like it's a series of small events that can literally tip your mind over and trigger that immense pain from that traumatic loss or that traumatic event that took place against you. And so, like I said, that's the very difficult thing, is that then you respond, you go to an emotional state as if you just got that news. You just got the news that you lost that loved one, or that traumatic thing happens to you, and it just shakes your world, and you feel like you're on this demonic, hellish type island by yourself with nothing but hate and pain around you. And so that's kind of just the mindset you're in. And then a loved one might come up to you and have no idea where you're at and say something, and you just snap. And it's not necessarily anything that you go totally crazy, but you might just give a really snappy, spiteful, whatever remark, and they're like, what the hell is your problem? And then again, that response to you overreacting, to the person who's suffering from traumatic pain overreacting, well, they're in a painful state of mind, and so any type of continuous negative reaction to them is just going to feed their pain. It's just going to feed their loneliness and make them further and further away. And so, I'm not condoning, if you have a loved one who's suffering from depression or traumatic loss or traumatic pain, I'm not condoning them overreacting. I'm just trying to let people know that this is what's going on. And so I think, again, if there have been times when I've done that with my wife, when something extremely insensitive, extremely hurtful was said to me, and then as the day went on, that was sticking with me. She kind of made a moderately insensitive thing, like something that in any other circumstance, I'd have been like, and I would have, kind of given her a hard time or whatever. But I really lost my temper, and I got really upset at her, and she was like, what the heck is going on? Like, why you? And and again, too, I went to that justifying why I was so mad. Well, you said this, and so I went to that. Well, as the night went on, and she was wondering what was going on, it got brought up what had happened, the incident where somebody had said something excessively insensitive and hurtful about my twin's death. And when she realized that, she did kind of this mental sigh of relief where she's like, oh, that's where you're getting upset. If I had known that. But it was just really important for her to be able to know what was going on, and to not just be left with what she saw, because I was, in her eyes, I was responding excessively emotionally and irrationally. But when she realized the source of why I was getting so upset, it wasn't what she had done. It was just that was what like set me off. That was the nail in the coffin. But when she had realized that the early incident had taken place, she showed so much more love and compassion towards me, into how I'd misbehaved, and that in of itself made me realize, hey, I messed up. I should not have overreacted that way. So I'm not saying that if you have a loved one who freaks out over small things, but is triggered by the real pain, that they're just allowed to do that. But what I am saying is they're going to be much more apt to see the misconduct of their ways if you gracefully point out, like, oh, what's really going on. Like if you allow them kind of a little bit of misconduct at the very least, to just for them to self-reflect and be like, hey, I shouldn't, because I think a lot of times most of us would. I think that there are so many good people out there who misbehave, but they're returned with more misbehavior, with more judgment and so forth. And so again, it's that, like I said, it's that cycle of self-defense. But I think that if we approach each other's misbehavior compassionately and allow the person to explain why they're blowing up, then they themselves are going to be more apt to see their misbehavior and then own up to it and to get control of it. Like I said, I mean, that was one of the things that I think really helped me with me losing my temper in the past, was just ironically allowing myself, but just also just trying to seek to do better. I think a lot of us, at least for myself, when I lose my temper, or if I if I act in a way that I'm not proud of, a lot of times I dwell on it and I'm just like, why did you do it? You did it again. You did it again. You did it. And so I start emotionally beating myself down. And because I'm emotionally beaten down, the next time an opportunity arises where I can choose to be, compassionate or be angry, a lot of times I get angry again because I'm in a depleted state of mind. But if I'm like, yo, what do I need to do better? Not you should have done better, but what do I need to do better? And a big part of it is just like letting yourself off the hook. And I don't mean not taking responsibility for it. I just mean just don't beat yourself up. Because when you beat yourself up, again, you're in an emotionally depleted state of mind. And if you're in an emotionally depleted state of mind, you're not going to be likely to be strong the next time that happens. You're just going to slip and fall again. And so you're going to keep looking back and being like, why do I keep doing this? Rather than be like, how do I stop it? So again, it's all about trying to look at the whys we do things and why it impacts us. Because again, like I said, a lot of people don't understand the true nature of mental health and depression and how it impacts the person and how it emotionally feels. Like I said, if I was trying to climb up a hill and I had a 200-pound pack and both my ankles were broken and I was struggling, everyone around me would understand why. I wouldn't have to explain why I was struggling. But people don't see that with mental health. They don't see the crippling effects that it has. And so they look at your misbehavior, they look at your struggling, and they judge you. And then all you do is see the 2 broken ankles and the weight on your back, and you're just like, screw you. Like, I'm dealing with a lot more than most could deal with. And so again, you just feel this sense of I'm not going to explain myself. I don't have to explain why I'm struggling. I know why I'm struggling, and I know I'm stronger than most. And so again, rather than actually explaining it and open their eyes, because a lot of times, like I said, when people are inconsiderate, they a lot of times they don't mean it. So them getting called out, like I said, I say my kid, I swear there's some NPCs out there, but no, the other day my youngest boy, he's almost 4. We were getting ready to leave my sister-in-law's house, and he sees this lady who's just walking in and says, hey. I mean, my son must have said hi to this lady a dozen plus times, and she just ghosts him, completely ignores him, and it was really obvious he was talking to her. There was nobody else out there. And my kid walked up to me and asked me what was her deal, what was her problem, what was wrong. I was just saying, why is she not responding? And I very clearly, without trying to be too much of a jerk, said, well, not everyone's a nice person. And just left it at that, because I'm just like looking at her like, the little kid saying hi to you, like, he's not throwing rocks at you. I can understand if he was being a repulsive, inconsiderate child where you might want to ignore his behavior. But he's being loving. Like, why are you having such a hard time? And so again, I feel like a lot of times that's what it is that, I'm just quickly analyzing her behavior. I imagine what it was that she wasn't sure what was going on. And when she realized that was happening, she just didn't want to make acknowledgement that she, should have been friendlier. And she kind of, again, she probably mentally inside of her head was justifying why she wasn't being friendly to my son, rather than just identifying, hey, that's, it's just a little kid, just, rather than self-reflecting, she self-justified. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say to people, is it's important for us to self-reflect more than self-justify, because, if we self-reflect, we can improve, we can get better, we can get stronger, we can diminish the incidences in which separate us all. But again, this is just one of the many things that we need to work on. But as always, good luck and good night.